She had long red hair, pale skin, blue eyes, and freckles. And this story is not about her. I was in Helsinki, Finland, and I saw this kiosk in the middle of the square. We walked to it. She asked me, "Do you smoke?" I ask her, "What do Finnish people smoke?" I take her advice. I buy a pack of Marlboro Reds, my first ones. We hang out in the city square, and we smoke cigarettes, and we look at people, and we make fun of pigeons. I feel really, really cool, but I smell terrible. I'm 17. I go into the back of my closet and I pull out a little fan that I have and a pack of cigarettes. I sit by my window and I watch the smoke trail in between my fingers, and I exhale into the cold, brisk New England air. This is my secret. Now, I'm 23, and my hands and my arms are covered in blood, just running down. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just crashed my bike in the light rail track. I did some ad hoc repairs, and I figure out how to get my bike going again, and I start riding home. And as I'm riding, I hear this voice, and it's this woman screaming, "Oh my God, please help me. Is anybody out there? Please, God, is somebody out there? Please help me." So I pull over, and I sit down. It's me, and it's her, and then it's him. He's across the street hanging out in the shadows. We call the police. She turns to me. "This is not how I expected my night to go. I don't know why this happened. I don't deserve this. I don't know why I'm here. I didn't expect this." I smoke American Spirits now. I hand her a cigarette and light it for her. "Well, you know what, lady? This isn't really how I expected my fucking night to go either. I was planning on being home like 2 hours ago, but now I'm covered in blood and hanging out on the curb with you." She looks at me and laughs. We both do. I'm 26 now. I'm hanging out in the back seat of my parents' car, and my mom and dad are in the front. My mom's nose starts twitching like a fucking basset hound. Sam, what's that smell? What smell? It smells like smoke. It doesn't smell like the funny kind of smoke either, Sam. Oh my God, I'm panicking. My heart is racing. "Sam, do you smoke cigarettes?" Shame. It just washes all over my body. I am just so nervous right now. And it's crazy to me because it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years since they realized that I smoke cigarettes. It'll be about another 2 or 3 years before they find out about the tattoos that I have. And it's funny, these people, my parents, they know me better than anybody else, and they don't really know anything about what I do. It's just weird. I also smoke Camels now. I'm 27, and it's 90 degrees outside. I'm standing in this pool. The water's really, really soft and refreshing. I'm hanging out with my friend Scott. We're both sitting there with our arms hanging over the side of the pool. We're laughing and chatting about like business school. We each have a Tecate in one hand and a cigarette in the other. My friend Clay comes through the gate. He's like an absolute hilarious Texan with the full accent and everything. He walks over, puts his feet into the water, and lights a cigarette. I really, really like days like these. I'm 28 now, and I'm walking through the park, and I got this little rock in my hand. It's like a lava rock. It's got a weird ridge on the side that I rub my thumb against. I need to do something with my hands. I need to do something to take my mind off of it. This attempt at quitting, it will last relatively long, but not forever. See, the physical addiction is tough. It's tough to quit, but that's not really it. There's all these memories about the bad choices we make. There's all these associations and feelings that we all have. Times when we use something to cope with something we couldn't quite deal with. Times that we use bad habits to celebrate things that we enjoy. And everybody in this room has one. There's some of you who are nail biters, some of you who pick scabs, people who binge eat, people who binge drink, people who lie, who shoplift, who steal, who cheat, who do all sorts of weird, terrible, bad choices. And most stories are about making one choice. It's about that choice that changed your life, a direction you decided to go, a prank call you decided to make. This is about making the same choice over and over and over again. And although every time I make this choice, I know people judge me on it. I know people identify me in that way. But I really just don't think they fully understand the choices we all make. Thank you.
My story starts. 10 or 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It wasn't life-threatening at that point, but there was already a high risk of the cancer cells spreading to my heart and to my lungs. And the only way to get rid of it was through surgery. I had a couple of weeks between my initial diagnosis and the surgery. And during this period, I became really interested in finding out more about the disease, how people survive them, symptoms, and so forth. That initial shock of finding out I had cancer dissipated into curiosity. I don't know, maybe I just really needed to keep my mind occupied during that time. For my case, the cancer was causing my thyroid glands to overproduce the hormone called thyroxine. It regulates the body's metabolism, temperature, your energy levels, even calcium absorption. With this hormone production in overdrive, I was constantly experiencing palpitations. I felt jittery, I felt fidgety, and sometimes my energy levels were hyper, and all of a sudden I would crash and maybe just sleep for 12 hours, not wanting to interact with people. On most nights, I had insomnia, which made it really difficult to focus on schoolwork the next day. So going through all of that literature about the disease, it was almost an aha moment for me. I wasn't actually a nervous wreck. I wasn't unpredictable. I wasn't a crazy insomniac. That wasn't who I was. It was just that I had this overproduction of thyroxine caused by the cancer. It's weird because it's something so powerful, but it's also invisible. It was doing this to my own body, and I almost had no control over it. That thought was both scary and liberating for me at the same time. My key takeaway from all of that, identity is multi-layered. I'm looking at it from a very microscopic lens. Over the years, I found that it helped me be more grounded with my own actions or reactions to all sorts of situations. It also helps me be more understanding and empathetic towards others, how they behave, how they react, just because I know that behind that action, there might be something that's out of their control. Getting to that point, it's almost ironic because I literally lost a part of me, my thyroids, to really appreciate and understand the rest of what makes me me. And I guess that's it. Thanks for listening to my story.
It's funny how you can get inside your own head and become your own worst enemy. I'm the youngest of 3 and son of Korean immigrants. My 2 sisters are older by 8 and 9 years, and they did pretty well for themselves. To give you an idea on this, Kathy went to Cornell and eventually Georgetown Law, while Jean got her bachelor's, master's, and PhD from that engineering school down the street in Cambridge, Mass. I think it's called MIT or something like that. Needless to say, I had some pretty big shoes to fill, and walking through the halls in our high school that we went to, the three of us, there were plaques and trophies to show their academic achievement. When teachers found out that I was Kathy and Jean's little brother, I saw faces of excitement and curiosity, silently thinking to themselves, what's this one going to do? I was obsessed with building my own legacy that was going to be better than theirs. However, I got hit with a common roadblock, failure. I got cut from varsity sports, didn't make the National Honor Society, and the list goes on. And it seems really trivial to think that I was negatively affected by that, but at that time, it just felt like I was chasing the perfect siblings and I was never going to catch up. When I got to college, Boston College, by the way, I was hopeful for a fresh start, but skeptical if I made the right decision. Like most colleges, we had freshman orientation, much like our first days here at HubSpot. And if you ask anyone on my team right now, or my department for that matter, I'm definitely not the loudest person in the room. And thinking myself as a college freshman, well, I don't think a lot has to be said. Everyone just seemed perfect around me and looked like they had it all together. But I didn't. I mean, I didn't even feel like I belonged in my own family. But something small yet very profound happened when I was about to leave campus. So there's a tradition at BC where at the end of orientation, the orientation leaders, typically upperclassmen, would crowd around and make a path, almost to symbolize like leaving the nest. As I was going through that, I saw my orientation leader, and to be honest, I don't do physical touch that well, so I was gonna give like a high five or fist bump or something of that nature, but instead she gave me a hug. That was something I wasn't very used to, but it had a profound effect on me because for one of the few times ever at that point, I felt like I belonged somewhere. However, freshman year of college is still freshman year of college, and there was a ton of growing pains. And I didn't see my family as an outlet to talk because I didn't think they cared, and I didn't feel that type of connection with them. But a little bit later, probably one of the most amazing things happened. Despite not having any prior running experience ever, my sophomore year, I attempted to run the Boston Marathon. The first couple of miles were okay, but around mile 10, my legs started to feel really heavy, and nausea set in. I thought about giving up, but right when I wanted to quit for good at mile 13, I saw a bald guy jump over the barrier towards me in a navy long-sleeve polo. It was my dad. With the biggest smile I've ever seen on anyone's face, he embraced me and said he was proud of me. Those were words he didn't normally say, and if he did, I'd probably block them out of my memory because I didn't think I deserved those words. But this time felt different. Tears were streaming down my face, and I forgot about quitting and kept moving forward. A few miles later, I climbed Heartbreak Hill to see the familiar faces at the stretch of mile 21 that is Boston College. And I don't remember too much because I was sort of blacking out at that point. But what I do remember was the sound of my name being chanted by my peers. At that moment, BC really started to feel like home. People from various social circles came to support me, and it was enough for me to push through the last 5 miles. Once I crossed the finish line, I felt a whole range of emotions. It was joy, it was excitement, relief. And I remember looking behind me and immediately breaking down to my knees, just sobbing. To help me back up on my feet were fellow marathoners, and for those 5 minutes or so, it didn't matter who anyone was. Everyone just felt like hugging someone, and it was a feeling you didn't want to let go. After that experience, I had this newfound confidence, but walking around BC with so many fucking stairs, I told myself, no more marathons, no more of that. Except I did 2 more marathons after that. You're probably asking why, and that's a very valid question. For each of those races, I was reminded of the family and love I did have at BC when I thought I was alone. I think throughout my life, I always thought my dad didn't understand me, but I think it was the other way around. I think the reality was that I never really understood him. That goes to say, I think, to me, identity isn't so much a thing or a trait, but it's an action. And my identity is centered around finding family. And the marathon gave that to me in many reasons. And that's what I hope to find here. Thank you.
I've only made one prank call, and it changed my life forever. I was in college, and I was hanging out with some friends and some friends of friends, and somebody said, we should call Susie and get her over here. And I didn't know Susie, didn't know people were actually named Susie. But somebody called Susie and got her voicemail and left a message, and somebody else called and did the same, and everybody called and left a message, and then finally someone looked at me and said, Kyle, you should call Susie. I was like, I don't know Susie, but I'm in college, so yes. And they gave me her number, and I called, and I got her voicemail. And my initial inclination was to hang up, but in that pause, that moment of silence right before the beep, I had a realization that Susie had no idea that the number calling her phone was connected to one Kyle Jepson, a sad and lonely young man whose idea of a fun night was watching old movies with his roommates and having philosophical discussions. She had no idea that Kyle had never kissed a girl, never been past a second date, certainly never had a girlfriend. She didn't know any of this, and there was no reason she had to. So I left a voicemail, but not as Kyle Jepson, the sad, lonely introvert, but as Tommy, Susie's spurned lover, who had been stood up at the mall yet again, and just when I thought our relationship was getting back on track, and I can't believe you've done it to me another time, and sorry, I'm not mad at you, I'm mad at the situation, and give me a call back, you know my number, I assume, and I love you. And I was rewarded with high fives and applause all around, and then a minute or so later, I got a text back, which unaccountably said, I'm on a date with another guy, you dork, but for future reference, flowers and chocolates equal winner. And I didn't know what to do with that, but I didn't have to do anything because the friends and friends of friends took my phone and responded on my behalf, and Tommy got a life of his own. And as the texts went back and forth between him and Susie, a backstory emerged about their tumultuous love life, and we found ourselves in a car going to a grocery store to buy flowers and chocolates, and I hand-wrote a lover's lament, and we delivered these things doorbell ditch style on her doorstep. And by the time the night was over, Tommy was committed to being at Susie's apartment the next day around noon with ice cream to make amends and try to start anew. And in the 12 or so hours that passed between the time that agreement was struck and the time I dutifully showed up with ice cream, I had to decide, am I going to go and say, like, hi, surprise, I'm actually named Kyle and I'm sort of lame? Or was I going to be Tommy? So I went with Tommy. And I met Susie and her roommate Krista, and they loved Tommy. And I was thrown into this wild new world of parties every weekend and trips to shows and festivals. And you know how you're constantly writing your autobiography in your mind? And as I was doing that, I was like, this is going to be the titular chapter. This is where everything changes. The book's going to be published as Becoming Tommy, and it's going to be the story of how the lame, sad, lonely Kyle Jepson became Tommy, and everybody loves Tommy, and it didn't work out that way. As I went to the parties and the shows and the festivals, I found myself surrounded by merrymakers, but often feeling alone. And the people around me would be like, Tommy, what's wrong? And in my mind, I'd be like, what's wrong? I'm not Tommy. I don't like this. I miss my old movies and my philosophical conversations and games of apples to apples. Like, what are we doing here? And I learned as the weeks and months and even years went by that you don't get to change your identity by just changing your name and adopting a new backstory. Changing yourself is never that easy. And it requires work and overall motivation. And I learned I was okay with who I was. I wasn't really interested in being a part of this crowd of revelry and parties and excitement. Like, I liked my quiet life. I liked my solitude and my late night walks. And so I stand before you now, Kyle Jepson. I am not Tommy, and I probably never will be. Thank you.